don't know if you've ever had this happen to you before, but the other day I received a phone call from a really angry parent, and she proceeded to tell me some things that um, were hard to hear, right? She said some things that my daughter had done. She accused my daughter of some things, and those kind of situations are super hard for parents, right? Both the parent who is making the phone call and the parent receiving the phone call. And so I thought it might be very useful here to just talk about, like, what are some things that you don't want to do when that happens, and what are some things that you do want to do. So let's start with the don'ts. First, don't panic. I know that's really hard, because I will tell you right now that immediately I felt sick to my stomach. My heart started racing. My face felt flushed, right? I was wanting to throw up. I was like, no, I do not like reports about my children that aren't good. Thankfully, I don't receive them often, but still. And so your brain is going to start freaking out. And this amygdala in the back of your brain is going to take over your thinking brain, and it's going to be like, this is dangerous to your ego. If this is true, it might mean you're a bad mom. If this is true, it might mean you're raising bad kids, right? That's what our brain does without us even telling it to do that. It's just trying to do its job. But if we allow that amygdala to take over, then we don't handle it from our thinking brain, and disaster can happen, right? We can make a bad situation even worse. And so the first thing is to notice that you're feeling a little bit out of control, and to take some really deep breaths, and then decide what you want to do. Now, thankfully, I had a little bit of time to pull myself together, because the story she was sharing was a little bit lengthy, right? She was really upset. So it gave me the opportunity to take those deep breaths, to calm down this fear-based brain that was wanting to freak out, and to decide how I really wanted to handle the situation. So that's the first thing that you don't do. You don't panic, because in reality, while it seems like everything is falling apart, that's not true. The truth is everything is actually okay. It's still okay. Okay, you with me on that? The next thing that you don't want to do, which I think is super hard, is that you don't want to get defensive. Now, that is going to be your first reaction more than likely, right? You're going to be like, well, who does this person think she is? What about her parenting? What about her kids? Or there's no way my child would ever do that, or whatever it might be, right? Your first reaction is going to be, I'm going to get super defensive, because this person, I'm telling myself a story that what they're saying means something negative about me or my child or my parenting or whatever it might be. And I cannot have that, right? So when our brain starts to panic and react to what is happening in front of us, to this situation, to the words we're hearing, then it's going to want to get defensive, and it's going to want to start to be like, well, there's no way that would happen. Like that can't be true, right? But the third thing that you don't do is that you don't assume anything, which means you don't assume that what she's telling you is not true. You also don't need to assume that it is. Don't assume anything. Just be open to the idea that what she's saying could be true. And you might be like, well, that's pretty simple, but I'm going to tell you it's more difficult than you would imagine, because it's hard to want to assume or think that it could be true, right? You're going to want to deny it. You're going to want to be like, no way. I am not even going to be open to the possibility my child would do that, because I just don't want to think that he or she did, right? It's much easier. I just would rather just be in the dark and pretend that this didn't happen than to actually think that maybe it did, because that's painful. That's super uncomfortable to think that my child would make a mistake like that. I have taught my child better, right? And so it's really important that you don't panic, that you don't get defensive, and that you don't assume anything. The best thing is to keep your mind open to all possibilities. So you don't assume, oh great, yeah, my daughter's done this, or my son has done this. You don't do that. You don't assume that what is being told you is the truth just because somebody's telling it to you. But you also don't assume that your child didn't do it. Now let's talk about some things that you can do. There's actually some really important things that you can do. One of them, which I think is so vital and so powerful, is to just get curious. Curiosity is a superpower. So in a situation like this, you might want to be like, I wonder why my daughter might have done this, or my son might have done this. I wonder what's going on with my child that would cause them to behave this way when it's not their normal behavior, and it's not aligned with our values and the things that we have taught them. And wondering, being curious about what really is the problem, because the problem isn't the action. Actually, the real problem is what's going on inside of your child's little mind and heart that would cause your child to behave in that way. Are you with me? So if we get too caught up in what was actually said or done, we miss the whole point, which is to be like, what is really going on here? This seems like a cry for help from my child, because this behavior isn't according to our values, and this behavior isn't something that we normally see in our home. So instead of like acting like an FBI agent and peppering your kids with questions about what happened and not really listening to the answers that they give, it's best to just find some really good questions that will help them know that you are on their team. You're there to support them and help them, and that you're open to any possibility. Okay, so use that curiosity to your advantage. And another thing is that is really important, and yet most people in this kind of situation, this goes right out the window, because they are reacting to their emotions, and their emotions are so strong and so big that it's really hard for them to just take a step back and say, what are the facts of this story? okay? Because as this mom was talking to me, she was using a lot of sentences that were actually just her opinion. Okay, now I am not in any way disregarding what she said or how upset she was, but we do this without even recognizing it. All of us do it. I do it, right? She was saying a lot of things that were her opinion about a certain behavior or about how somebody else might have been feeling. There was a point where I said to this particular mom, I said, "Did you, in fact, hear these words come out of my child's mouth? Did you hear them? Were you there?" "Well, no, I wasn't, but so and so told me." "Okay, that's just good information for me to know. I'm not calling her a liar or anything, but it's good for me to know that what she is accusing my child of doing could be, in fact, not true because she wasn't there to experience it." So when you stick to the facts of what happened, it clears out all the drama and it gives you an opportunity to decide what to do with those facts. Are you with me? So you want to get curious, you want to focus on the facts, and then there's a point where you just have to choose what to believe. And this is a little bit tricky because you were not there, right? I was not there. I wasn't part of the conversation. I wasn't at the school when this happened. And so I cannot say with any degree of certainty what happened. So there's just a point where I had to be like, okay, I have to choose right now whether I'm going to believe what my child is telling me, which is different than what I'm hearing from somebody else, partly, or whether I'm going to not believe my child. And I think so often we want to be like, well, we need to have proof. I need to have proof that my child did or didn't do this. Well, no, you actually don't. Proof is nice. And if you can get proof, great. But you don't have to have it to choose whether you're going to believe this particular part of the story, and this particular part of the story, and so forth. Okay, you get to make that, you get to choose that. And at some point, that's what you have to do. Next, and this also can be a little bit hard, be respectful. I'm sure you're a very respectful person, but I'm telling you that when somebody is offering you information that threatens your worth or your child's worth or what you think that's being threatened, it's really hard to be respectful back, especially if that person is upset. It's easier to match their feelings with your own feelings. And then you just have two really big feelings and they're competing against each other and it does no good. So you have to remember to be respectful. So what did I say in this situation? I said, "Thank you for the information. I appreciate that. I will definitely be having a conversation with my daughter. This is important in our home and she's important to me and we will be working on this in our home. Thank you." Another thing that you do want to do is you want to hold your child accountable. So for whatever part that you decide your child played in the problem, hold that child accountable, okay? Maybe it's that the child needs to replace something that was stolen or broken. Maybe it's that the child needs to apologize. Maybe it's that the child needs to make recompense in some way or another. That is the best thing that you can possibly do for your child. And at this point, the focus is your child. It's not the angry person. It's so easy to focus on that person. I had to recognize that for what it was and I had to put it aside and I had to be like, no, my focus isn't her, right? I'm gonna let her deal with her own emotions and her own actions. I'm gonna allow her space to do that. My focus is my child because this is what really matters to me. And if my child did in fact say this, then I really want to help my child learn from this experience. Are you with me? And that kind of melts right into the last thing that you should do, which is use the experience as a powerful learning tool. I think so often as parents, we're so busy freaking out about behaviors that we forget to do this one important thing, which is to tell our kids, look, everything is still okay. I don't want my child to feel like a loser. I don't want my child to feel like a bad person because of mistakes that are made. That does not help. That only makes them question their identity and their worth, and nobody can make good decisions or be their best selves when they're questioning that. So I want to be supportive. We want to talk together about what went wrong if something did, or what the accusation was and why that might have happened and what to do about it. If it's true or not true, what are we going to do about it? And then hold my child accountable for whatever role they played in the problem and encourage them, what can we learn from this situation? What would you do differently if you could do it over again? Are you with me? These are such valuable questions to ask and to consider. So in the end, this was a super uncomfortable situation, a situation nobody wants to be in. No parent wants to receive a phone call like that, right? But do you know that in the end, as we worked through the situation, I actually said, this is what I'm choosing to believe, and I'm okay if you don't feel that way too. I'm okay. Like, you got to deal with your emotions. I understand them. This is what I'm choosing to believe, and I'm okay if we are on different planes here, right? And in the end, the situation turned out to be a really positive experience. And you might be like, that seems impossible, but I'm telling you that it isn't. You think about the things that you've learned the most from in your life, and it's mistakes, right? It is mistakes. And this was a perfect opportunity to just work with our child on reminding her of her own values and of who she's trying to become, and how even when she's stressed, it's important to be respectful, and how to stand up for herself at times if accused of something that she didn't do, or whatever it might be. There were so many lessons that we can learn. And as I talked with this mom, I was grateful that in the end, it was a positive conversation. In fact, she thanked me for how we handled it, and she told me she thought I was a really good mom. Now, let me tell you what, it felt impossible when this situation started, that at the end of the day, that's what I would be hearing, right? And it's not even that I am a good mom or I'm not a good mom. It's not that, because I don't need somebody else to tell me that. it was watching as we worked to handle this the best way we knew how and focus on the things that were important and let go of the drama, how it allowed space for this person to be forgiving and even to see the good in us, despite the fact that we're not perfect. So if you ever have a situation like this where your child is being accused of something or you're told they've done this behavior that you're just like mortified by, remember the don'ts and remember the do's. Don't panic. Don't get defensive. Don't assume anything. And here are things that you should do. Use curiosity. Come up with some really good questions that will help you understand where your child is coming from and why they think and feel and do what they're doing, right? Focus on the facts. That is so vital. Push all the drama and the stories away and just focus on the facts of the situation. Choose what you want to believe, because in the end, you're going to have to. Unless you were an eyewitness, you're going to have to choose, and you get to decide. And in the end, I felt really peaceful about what we chose to believe about the story and about our daughter's role in what did or did not happen. Be respectful above all, because at the end of it all, in a week, in a month, in a year, it isn't even going to matter. This little situation isn't going to matter, but the way that you treated somebody else when they were frustrated or angry or upset, that's going to matter, because that's your own self-respect that you're building. So be respectful to somebody else. Hold your child accountable for the part that they play in this. Don't be afraid to do that. Now, I'm not saying to punish them necessarily. Maybe you will. Maybe that's what you decide to do. That's okay. Maybe you won't, and that's okay too. But hold them accountable. Our daughter did something that was really hard to do. She recognized that there was this part she played in the situation that she could have handled better. And so she called up this mom and she apologized to her. Very difficult to do, but she did. And she needed to own her poor behavior, right? Because the only way that her behavior is going to improve is if she's willing to own and accept what she did. It doesn't make her a bad person. It doesn't mean that she's not worthy anymore. None of that changes. It means she's learning from her mistakes. So hold your children accountable when they make a mistake, because mistakes are going to happen and mistakes are okay. Mistakes are learning tools. And that's why you want to do the last thing, which is to use this as an opportunity to learn. Not only for this child, but perhaps for the entire family. What do you do when you're stressed and you come up on a situation where you're not sure what to do? How do you handle it? What do you do if you're accused of saying or doing something that you know you didn't do? How do you want to handle it? What do you do when you owe somebody an apology because you weren't as respectful as you could have been? How are you going to handle it? This makes the situation turn from a disaster into a learning opportunity. And that's what we want for our kids. You got this.